Well, as you've been hearing all morning, about 200 countries gathered in Paris over the last 2 weeks for the UN Global Conference on Climate, and they've hammered out some sort of an agreement. They've committed to keep the rise in global temperatures well below 2 degrees Celsius. They also have decided to give developed nations $100 billion annually by 2020 to help fight climate change. They also set the goal of a carbon-neutral world within this century. Well, Vancouver Mayor Gregor Robertson was in Paris for the conference and joined us now for his reaction on this agreement. Mayor, good morning.
Good morning, Rick.
So what do you make of what they hammered out on Saturday?
I think it is a breakthrough globally. There's no question that many of us around the world have been waiting and hoping and expecting national leaders to take this next step of fully committing and embracing the opportunity with the green economy. And I think we saw a good, solid agreement that is, in many ways, just catching up with the real world, because the changes are happening on the ground. They're happening in cities like Vancouver. They're happening in the business community. And it's important to have national governments recognize that and be committed to helping drive that pace of change that keeps this planet livable for all of us.
It's one thing for national governments to agree to this at a conference in Paris. The work, though, begins on the ground and municipally. So what does this mean for the big cities in Canada? What will we be doing here in Vancouver differently over the coming years?
Well, so we've been a pace setter, I think, on the greenest city front, striving to be the greenest in the world. I think it's been something that's part of Vancouver for many years, and good decisions made by government, by people living here for a long, long time. I think that this is a benefit for us. First of all, having a national government. I think Canada was very constructive at the Paris negotiations. We did a 180 as a country and became one of the leading, most ambitious countries on climate change and the green economy, which is fantastic from my perspective, and I think is really, really important for Canada's future. And that means that we're seeing a federal government that is making the commitments that they've put forward in their election campaign, and we're expecting that they're going to be making unprecedented investments in Canada's cities for green infrastructure, for transit, for the actions on the ground that reduce our climate pollution and really will create an enormous number of new jobs and position Vancouver and Canada as leaders around the world.
So what does Vancouver have to ensure that Canada will be part of to reach the goals that were set by the federal government? What does Vancouver have to do specifically?
Well, specifically, something like investing in transit, the Broadway subway, Surrey Light Rail, buses around the region, that 10-year plan that the mayor's brought forward is the most direct, significant impact on our carbon emissions, our GHGs, that we can make. The investment that goes into that, along with dealing with traffic congestion and making sure that goods movement happens for our economy, it is a massive improvement in the climate pollution right now that we're pumping out of cars, and people don't have a choice with transit right now in many parts of the region. So that's a very direct step that we can take. We're actually slipping behind other cities around the world that are making huge investments in public transit. So we do have leadership on a lot of fronts here. We have the lowest carbon emissions per capita of any city in North America right now. We're trailing some of the European cities who've already made bigger investments in whether it's public transit or making their buildings more efficient. But we're a leading city here in North America.
But Mayor, it's all well and good to pat ourselves on the back, but Vancouver is still far from meeting its own greenest city goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 33% below 2007 levels. At last count, we'd only reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by 7%. So from a city bylaw perspective, what can we expect to see? Any immediate changes taking place?
Well, we will definitely see the building code continue to get greener and make sure that we have carbon neutral buildings by 2020 and zero emission buildings in 5 or 10 years beyond that. So we will continue to push the pace in terms of reducing the climate impact that our buildings have, and that's over half of our emissions come from our buildings. That's burning natural gas to heat our buildings and homes, and we need to get off of that in the years to come. And we need to stop building homes and buildings that rely on that for heat. So we've got steps that we can improve. We're a the best city in North America on this front right now, but we need to reduce our overall impact and our consumption. I mean, in Vancouver, we consume, whether it's water or just generally goods, we consume 4 to 5 times what is sustainable in this world today. So we've got a lot of work to do to reduce our impact and really show the way forward.
We all hope that we can turn this around, but one of the things that scientists have brought up many, many, many times is if we don't reduce the temperature of the planet, oceans are going to rise. And being an ocean city, what is this city doing to combat that or to prepare for that eventuality should it happen?
Well, that's exactly right. And I think the reality check that scientists have been weighing in with is a big part of the driver in Paris. The cost of climate impacts are massive, and they're already piling up. And certainly we see the impact now of sea level rise in Vancouver. And as that intensifies, we're talking about the initial estimate is $10 billion that we're going to have to invest to keep the ocean out of Vancouver and our airport. The region is certainly one of the most high-risk cities. They're in the top 20 highest-risk cities for sea level rise and climate impacts. And that means we need to get on top of it. That's something that was driving national governments, was looking at the world's big cities and seeing how vulnerable they are. And how we do that, how we afford to do that is a question that's still out there, because a lot of these impacts, they're already going to happen at a 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius rise in temperature globally. So we're facing these impacts no matter what, and they're going to be very costly for taxpayers to keep the ocean at bay or deal with flooding or the heat that is impacting cities around the world.
Mayor Robertson, thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks, Rick.
Gregor
hopeful for.
Gregor Robertson, the Mayor of Vancouver. We welcome your thoughts in this.